Go live again.
Nope, 3, 2.
All right. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. RFK Refugees on RFK Refugees podcast. If you guys are listening on YouTube, this is the first time you're hearing this. If you're listening on Periscope, you're getting a second
Take 2, baby. Take 2.
second introduction. This is what you get when you're running a show on the fly. Maybe we didn't give ourselves enough prep time. I was trying a new thing to try to make sure we didn't create 2 YouTube events, and I didn't know I actually had to hit the start stream button on the YouTube channel. So that's my fault, my mistake. But we're back. We're back. John, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm great. I feel like I've learned a lot about technology and the internet in the last 7 minutes. So I feel refreshed and ready to podcast.
Yeah, ready to podcast. All right, let's jump right into it. I think actually I'm going to switch gears a little bit because you actually had the benefit of going to the Meet the Team event. And
I did.
I wonder if, before we get into the news about Emil Asad, which we started to talk about, which was the first thing on my mind, but before we get into that, John, I wanted to get what were your thoughts of the event itself? How was it? Was it enjoyable?
Yeah. This was my first Meet the Team day at Audi Field. I used to go to them a lot at RFK, and then there was a long period of which I was not a season ticket holder, either because I moved or because I just didn't want to do it. So this was the first one I got to do at Audi Field, and I wanted to get, as listeners will have heard, I wanted to get Wayne Rooney to sign my jersey that was too small, that couldn't fit my body. So that was my main concern. And I walked to the line outside the stadium, and it was like they only had one gate open at 10 o'clock when the doors, and the line was out past like the crossing guard area when you get there on South Capitol. I was like, well, that's not great. That's a bad sign. And then on the way in, we got a DM from one of our listeners who gave me his fast pass, which was very cool. And I want to make sure that I give him credit. I want to make sure. I think is it Give Me My Footy? Does that sound right to you?
That sounds
I
about
want to
right.
make sure I'm getting his name. Yeah, at Give Me My Footy. He made this thing happen because if not, if I were like everyone else that stood in that long giant line and didn't get in because the line was ridiculously long, I would have been pretty salty. And also, I would have agreed a lot more with the general pervasive wisdom that fast passes are bad and they shouldn't do them if I hadn't gotten one.
Yes.
However, I happened to receive one. You know, the spoils of victory as a DC United podcaster. It was so. This is the way it worked. You got in the line to get to see Wayne. He was in the Heineken bar, and the line was wrapped like a giant snake at 10:05. Right as soon as they opened the door, like a big giant snake all the way under the concourse on the east side.
Are you telling me Wayne Rooney is some big superstar player that I should be paying attention to?
It appears that people tend to want to meet him or at least get autographs. There were people, I saw James Lambert show up with a giant Tupperware full of things to sign. I saw Matt Matai show up with like 11 shirts like in bags to sign. I was like, there's no way he gets all the. I understand these are DC United like fan legends or whatever else they like, but there's no way they didn't. Everybody got one thing signed. At most, they got 2. But anyway, I got to meet Wayne really quickly. That basically was me. First of all, so I think what happened was they were late, and what they were doing was signing for VIPs in the locker room before they met everybody else. I saw that in pictures later. They were meeting kids in the locker room. They had little gift bags they were signing. Cool, whatever, fine. So they get there a little bit late. Wayne walks across the field from the locker room with a cop escort and like 30 people in like a phalanx formation, like he's the president. And the man, it looked like a perp walk. He was like, I cannot believe I have to do this for 2 hours. It's gonna suck. So he gets there. Everyone's taking his picture. He walks in, sits down. I think his agent was there. I think if I remember a familiar face. I get in. He's a small dude. He's not big. He's very quiet. My wife was blown away how like sort of meek he sounded. Just like, hey. I'm not gonna do a Liverpudlian accent, but it's like, hey, thank you for coming, thanks.
Yeah.
And he signed my jersey. I got a picture with him. He was not going to stand. Clearly, that would have been a ridiculous thing. So there's a picture of me, like sort of like squatted in front of the table, and him just sitting there looking like he's about 2 inches tall because of forced perspective of how photography works. So that's a cool picture. I'm not going to get that one printed out. I don't think that one's going to go on the desk. But he was very nice, and he signed my stuff, and that was that. And then I moved on to go elsewhere.
John, did you give him an RFK refugee sticker?
He signed an RFK refugee
There
sticker.
you go. Boom.
So this, I would bring it over here and show you. So what I did was I got everybody that I met to sign an RFK refugee sticker. Well, almost everyone. I'll get to that in a minute. But everyone I met, that was what I had them sign. So I've yet to decide what we're going to do with those, but those are going to go to our listeners in some way or some shape or form. So I didn't get to do the Lucho line. It was Lucho, Hara, and TT. They were, of course, the Argentinians grouped together. Their line was, there were 3 lines that required a fast pass or accepted a fast pass. Wayne, the Argentinian line, and then also Bill and Briant. I think it was Birnbaum, but Birnbaum canceled the morning of for whatever reason, and then Briant took that spot.
I love Brilliant as a player. I'm sure he's a wonderful person, but I think DC was like, sure, whatever, fine, yeah, you're good.
Yeah, somebody had to sit in that seat with him. It was all about Bill. That was a line I waited in for a little while, but it's only 2 hours, right? Like you got to move, or you got to have a plan where you're spread out.
Yeah.
And you go to each line, and my wife and I were not going to spread out. So we waited in line together and got what we could get.
Yeah.
So we didn't get Bill, and we didn't get the Argentinian crew. But so anyway, I signed everything. Ola Kamara is super nice. I talked about it. That man was super cheery. He like found something to talk about with everybody that he met. Like if you were wearing a shirt, he commented on that shirt. If you had a special thing to sign, he talked about that thing you were signing, and he talked about like playing soccer and scoring goals and loving to score at home, just like really into it. You could tell this is a man that was like, China was not what I was hoping for it to be. I enjoy speaking the language. I enjoy being a little bit more comfortable. So he had a good time.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, it sounds like a good time. I also saw you got pictures with Ben Olsen, and you also ran into the one and only Dave Johnson, which made me very jealous because I have yet to meet Dave Johnson.
Yeah, so Ben Olsen is a funny story. So I was walking from the Bill Hamid line, sort of realizing that was not going to happen, and then I saw Ben standing there in the middle of the concourse, by the Cuban sandwich stand, with just a fistful of markers, just him and 2 guys. I was like, is this an accident? Did he just like walk and then someone stopped him and he's like, I guess I'm online now. So he just started signing for people. Everybody brought their kids over, and so I wait in the line. I'm like, yeah, definitely doing this. And longtime listeners will remember my previous experience with Ben Olsen at Meet the Team Day is for him to yell at me about soccer cards not being real and jersey cards being fake and a fraud, and me just being like, cool, man, thanks for that, appreciate it. So I wait through the line, I shake his hand, say, nice to meet you or whatever. And I give him a sticker. I give him an RFK refugee sticker, and I give him a pennant to sign. And he takes the sticker and he just takes it. He's like, what's this? I was like, oh, this is my podcast. He's like, RFK refugees. And I'm like, yeah, man. He's like, cool. Can I keep this? I was like, sure. And then he takes my pennant and he signs the back of the back side of my pennant. I was like, okay, cool, man. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. I'm obviously not gonna do anything with this. But I have been meeting him in one capacity or another now since 2007, 2008. I said on Twitter, unfortunately, my hat where I can be objective about what I want to have him happen at the end of the year. It's sorry, guys, it's off now. I just gotta keep him forever. He's too nice. Like we'll talk about this later, but the Sebi Salazar interview on Pitch Pass talks about what happens when he goes and what links to this pass does this team have. It's almost like a completely different entity, and that's something that sort of came to me as I was talking to him and Dave Johnson. I was like, when you take those 2 things away, like it's not even the badge anymore. You're like, well, they're still named DC United and they're still in DC. Those are the things that are true about them still.
Yeah, and that's a big point. As much as I've sort of not been happy with some of the decisions that Ben Olsen's made. I know there are people out there that don't want Ben Olsen there. I mean, the dude once just showed up to I'll forget like the Philly game where we got absolutely smashed. he showed up to like the Bar Brava tailgate and just rolled right in and just like took pictures with everybody, was like happy. He clearly only had like maybe like 10 minutes to like do it, and he went and did it. So I mean, he is absolutely a DC legend as a player. I think he still is still considers that legend status even as a coach. What he sort of led this team through when they literally could not afford anybody, and he won silverware for this team in the Open Cup. It came in a bad season, but he managed to do it. So there still is a part of me that just can't quite get upset at him. That being said, results speak for themselves, and we'll see how this team finishes out the season. They've got 4 games. Wayne's family is now officially settled in the UK. I'm hopeful that will kind of sort of that whole situation has been taken care of now. So now he is literally here. He is staying in probably I think an apartment for like the next.
He's in DC, yeah.
Yeah, staying like in an apartment for the next months. All he has to do is focus on soccer and focus on the team and trying to make the best of what he has left with the team and sort of make up. I'm willing to bet he at least has maybe one ear to the ground about what has sort of been said about him. There've been a lot of upset fans on Twitter. He has a Twitter account. He was active. Now he doesn't respond the way he used to.
But I think his agent runs that now. I don't think
that could be, but I would not surprise me if there was some, he was getting at least some, and some idea that maybe fans aren't quite happy with his previous performances, and maybe he wants to come in and show, no, I can still be a force in this league. Just watch. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting 4 games coming up. Tough games on the road against Portland, at home against Seattle, on the road against New York, and then they finally finish up the year with a completely different type of game where they're playing basically a USL side, and FC Cincinnati at home. So right now this team is in 4th place. They have that home game in the playoffs, but it's a real tight squeeze in there. I'm not sure that they're going to hold on to that position. There's both teams below them have a game in hand. Now it's kind of worked out where they still seem to be in that position. So we'll kind of see what happens. But I guess to close out the year, we can talk 2020, right? We can start talking.
Yeah, I just wanted to say what Dave Johnson did, which I thought was cool.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry,
to finish that up. Yeah. There. So I was in the line for Quincy and Griffin. There's the last line I stood in that I didn't get thrown out of. Both of whom said they want to be on the podcast. So look out for that. Also badger them on Twitter if you'd like listeners to make sure they come on the show.
Yes, please post a link to our show when we're live. And I just want Quincy to just call in, just to drop in on the phone,
Quincy's a businessman now.
Yeah,
he told me his email to email to him to actually get him on the show. This requires talking to his people, I think.
Okay.
And his people might be him, but they're still people.
Yes.
So Dave Johnson was basically walking through the lines that people were in and just meeting everybody and shaking everybody's hand. And if you asked for a selfie with him, he got a selfie with you for his own phone. And I loved it. I loved it so much that was what he decided to do, because the people were waiting in lines. Everyone was again, putting the Wayne Rooney line aside, everyone was in a good mood. Everyone was so happy to meet these players and just in a good positive vibe. And Dave doing that just made it even better. It was a really good day and morning. And Dave sort of doing that just was really a super fan friendly thing. Everyone was excited about it. Everyone loves Dave Johnson for a reason, because he's the best.
He's just such a nice person. He goes out of his way on Twitter to comment everybody. Anytime someone's posting about the Wizards, DC United, I know he made his name, I guess, as a Wizards radio guy, but for me, he's always just been a legendary voice. And if they ever get rid of him, which, that might happen when this league decides, we're going to do this whole, completely new style, where we're going to have all the matches on one channel or one broadcast. Dave might end up going away, which would be really, really sad for me, because he's always just been kind of there and listening to his games and just the passion he brings to the game and just how much he's a man of the people when it comes to the fans. He's not somebody who's above the fans, who's above, who's necessarily above that, where he thinks he's, better than everybody else. And he really just loves the love he gets. And yeah, it's been really cool. It's really cool to see him how much he really cares about and how much he loves DC United. So, I'm glad you got to meet him. I really want to meet him at one point, so I'm hopeful that'll happen.
He said he listens to the show.
Yes, he does.
He said he's heard of
which
it
is very
before.
cool for me. That's really cool for me. That was a
Yeah,
personal
well,
moment that made me feel happy.
Me too. Yeah, man. I took the sticker. Everybody was really cool and supportive. There were a couple of you who asked me, "Am I the John from the podcast?" Which I got to tell you right now. How many episodes are we in? 79? Is that what it is now?
Yeah, 78, I think 78.
Buddy, I'll tell you what. That if you guys want to keep me doing a podcast, just for your own and be able to just give me that little bit of feeling. Just like, once every couple of weeks, be like, hey, I like that podcast you do. That's all I need. And I got a whole bunch of it. I got a whole bunch of it at Audi Field this weekend. So thank you to those people who came up and made me feel really happy. And thank you for listening to the show. Somebody apologized for not being a Patreon subscriber, which made me feel like maybe we should stop talking about Patreon on the show because I don't want to make people feel bad. But if you do want to support us, it's patreon.com/RFKrefugees.
Yes. Yes, patreon.com/RFKrefugees. Support the show if you want. It's great. It's good times.
Totally up to you.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk DC United news.
Yeah.
Let's talk Yamil Asad, the patron son of DC United, returning to the team in 2020. So if you haven't been paying attention, he's returning in 2020. Apparently, he's going to play a few games for Loudoun United, which, I mean, that kind of made me.
That rules so much.
Yes, that made me consider the 3-hour drive it would take to get me from Richmond to Leesburg. Or maybe it's only about a couple hours, but it's like one of those drives that just feels long because you have to drive through a whole no interstates. It's all just back roads to get to Leesburg.
Yeah.
So, but I'm now excited. I kind of looked at the schedule and was like, is there a game I could conceivably make? I want to wait till he actually makes an appearance because I don't want to buy a ticket and set myself I'm going to go to this game and then show up and he's not there. But that is pretty cool, and I think that's pretty cool for Loudoun. I'll be curious to see if that gets some people out to those games as kind of to getting to see Yamil Asad because he is absolutely. I mean, I know he hasn't played in 6 months, but once he gets his fitness up, he is absolutely going to wreck USL defenders. No question is he going to wreck them. It's not even. It's going to be a joke in my opinion. I think he could conceivably finish with at least 4 or 5 goals before in the 6 or 7 remaining games they have left. Personally,
Tim on Twitter, you've got to be feeling like $1 billion. You've got Yamil Asad back in the fold. You were wondering when would it happen, and the answer is it happened this past week. And he is now living, I believe, in the next to the Anthem, down in that area of DC. He posts pictures every day. So, if you're down there by Anthem, just look on the rooftop. Probably a dude hanging out at the pool. Probably Yamil Asad.
And it's gotta feel good for him that he has a contract now. It's not a loan. He's been on loans now and then he's been on a team that clearly didn't want him. I mean, he's been on loan. He was on a loan a year in Atlanta, a loan a year in DC. DC really wanted him. Didn't work out. He's missed a whole year. Now he has basically a 2-year contract. Could be a 3-year contract easily, where he gets to come back to a league he's comfortable in. I'm excited that he's back. And DC has a front line. I mean, we're all kind of assuming Assad's gone, but I mean, the front line with Kamara, Asad, and Areola, as Roach has pointed out, I mean, that's a playoff team. That's certainly a playoff team that DC United has right here. It doesn't pack quite the punch with having Wayne Rooney in there, but that's still a very formidable attack that a lot of teams are going to have to contend with. And we've already seen Ola Kamara just step right in and immediately start to make a difference for the team. So very, very good to see him. To see him in there and to see him back with the team. So I'm excited for 2020 and having him back. And I think that was very much a much needed move to kind of, I guess, calm everybody down a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah. I'm happy he's back. It would have been awesome if we could have had him for the year as an additive piece instead of sort of a replacement piece for next year. You're right. I think we've got a strong forward 4, I think, based on the players that are under contract for next year are likely to be back. But yeah, I'm glad he's here. I think it will be funny for him to play in Loudoun. I will go see one if he does actually end up playing. I think it will be amusing. So I'm always up for amusing things. But I'm not expecting too much out of him based on the amount of layoff he's had and the way that USL can be a little physical. So if he plays 6 games and doesn't score any goals, I'm not going to read too much into that. The man has been in mothballs for 12 months. It would be cool if he rips him up. That would be very funny and good. particularly because Loudon is having a rough go, having
Yeah.
a really rough go of it right now. Unfortunately, he doesn't play center back, so I don't think he's going to help them too much. But
Yeah.
you want to talk about let's talk about good. Well, is there any more about Yamil? Actually, let's open up the phone lines about Yamil. So if you've got a comment about Yamil Asad, give us a call.
202-905-0454. Call number's right there at the top of the screen. You can see it right up there now. So call us in.
Cool. Call us now. We're gonna move on and keep talking about stuff while we go. But if you call, we'll come back and talk about Yamil.
Because the stuff we want to talk about now is not so great, and that is the U.S. men's national team playing a game against Mexico, a friendly, mind you, losing 3-0 against Mexico. John, did you have a chance? Did you watch this game at all? Did you partake?
I watched the first half and then I fell asleep because I've gotten very old all of a sudden. I've stopped drinking caffeine, so my time to bed is like 9:30, 9:45.
Yeah, I caught like the tail end of like the second half and stuff like that, and then I kind of watched a little highlights, read a little bit of the analysis, and a lot of people were upset about this game. A lot of people were angry, and I understand it. Mexico is the United States' biggest rival, friendly or not. You never want to watch your team play that poorly, make so many defensive mistakes. The only way I'll play devil's advocate is we have been talking about for years. The idea of the U.S. men's national team playing a system that passes out of the back, playing a system where they play possession, they play forward soccer, they play all those things that Jurgen Klinsmann talked about in when he was hired in 2010 and delivered absolutely nothing on. Let's be clear, delivered absolutely nothing with regards to that. All of that talk, all of that bluster about this idea. Greg Berhalter, for better or worse, is at least trying it. And he's at least trying to instill that type of thing. Now, there are general questions about whether the players he has out there actually have the skill level to be that type of player. And in my opinion, players like Will Trapp and Giassi Zardes are not those players. They are not. It worked, and this is, I think it was Kim McCauley had a great comment. He's like, it might have been from his article he wrote, which was fantastic, by the way. Go read that article. She did a really good job at sort of breaking it down. So, and so Kim McCauley wrote a lot about how Will Trapp is not a world-class player. Giassi Zardes is not a world-class player. So it all breaks down the idea that he isn't putting the players out there. He needs to find new players that are going to be able to do what he wants to do. I don't know. Do you have the general thought on that, John, or
about the players that are being selected to play out?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I think this lineup was about. I think that he believes that these players from his days in Columbus will give him a consistent performance, and he knows what he's going to get out of them, and he doesn't have enough hours in with other players to really feel comfortable with other players in that position. And there are also some, defensive midfielder position that's sort of. I think there are other players we'd like to see start, but we're not at a full complement there. I think there's still some injuries and there's some players that they couldn't draw in. Zardes, however, was Sargent on the bench?
Yeah, I believe Sargent was on the bench and came on.
Okay, then absolutely no, then no excuse. There's a potential that he doesn't want to have Sargent get overexposed too soon, which is a thought. You could think that. I mean, he's starting. I think in the Bundesliga and scoring goals.
Had a really nice goal in the Bundesliga. I don't know if you saw it where he liked it.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating when you're watching. And every coach has their guys. There are coaches that have their guys. Bob Bradley had Jonathan Bornstein. Everybody hated Jonathan Bornstein. Bob Bradley kept bringing out Jonathan Bornstein. That was kind of the running joke. I guess Michael Bradley was Jurgen Klinsmann's guy, or Jermaine Jones. I don't know. Jurgen Klinsmann never developed really much of a tactical sense. Landon Donovan certainly was not his guy. He was figuring out a way he could bench Landon Donovan no matter what it took. But all coaches have their guys. But you're seeing very, very clearly that Giassi Zardes and Will Trapp are not players who can play at this level. It's so obvious, and he doesn't do it. And that's very worthy of criticism. And there's almost a question of there has to be this idea at some point. You're either so rigid in this idea that the U.S. can play this and I could be completely wrong. Gyasi Zardes could become a World Cup champion. He could absolutely start lighting it up. Maybe, and we'll all look like idiots and fools. It doesn't look like it's happening, and it hasn't happened throughout his career. And, these players are older. These players are, 26, 27, 28. So they're not going to develop really much into those types of players in the first place. So, in my opinion, you have a young core that you can build off of. A player like Josh Sargent. I mean, what did Josh Sargent think about? He's like, I'm starting in the Bundesliga, and you're going with Gyasi Zardes, whose most notable moment so far is scoring a goal off his face. And here I am ripping it up, conceivably I score a goal where I literally chest the ball and kick it up over the keeper and score, and you're starting, Gyasi Zardes? It would have to be very frustrating.
To be fair, Gyasi Zardes was on the journey on FIFA 19 as a scripted actor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So talk with some respect on his name. Put some respect on Gyasi Zardes' name when you mention him. Yeah, I don't know, man. Also, other things about the game that matter. I think seeing Serginho Dest get a little bit torched in his first game. He did some good things, some bad things. Our left back position for the United States continues to be an area of need. If we can retain him, even though he's still young and we don't lose him to the Netherlands, that would be good because we don't have a lot of depth there. I think that he was a little exposed by where Pulisic was playing a couple times. Yeah. So overall, like you said, I think people wanted to get really upset about this. We're not better than Mexico right now. Mexico is better than we are right now. We've got to just own that. In the past, and many years ago, like sort of that was a toss up, and it would depend on the week how we would go and what team we brought in, or if they brought their A team in, or if our guys were up for it. I think now they're better than us right now. We've got to get better, and the young players need to get exposure and opportunity in this space to find out what they're going to be.
The real final test is going to come once World Cup qualifying starts. Once they're games of actual consequence. Right now, I commend Greg Berhalter for trying something new, something different. But at this point, I do not believe that he has. I do not believe that necessarily he's on necessarily the right path. It seems like, and so a lot's going to have to change. Either the team gets better or he has to reverse his tactics. So we'll see what happens. I don't think he will go out the same way against Mexico in a Gold Cup final that he will right now Mexico in a friendly. He's trying to build some things, and then when you get to the game, okay, maybe you try to incorporate some of those things. So it's not really a fair litmus test, in my opinion, to get so upset about the scoreline and say, oh, he should be fired for that result. I'm like, no, he should absolutely not be fired for basically an exhibition game result. It's like firing an NFL coach in preseason or firing an MLS coach in preseason. That's not what you do. You don't fire a coach for bad friendly results. I'm sorry, you just don't. It's not something you do.
Yeah, that would be weird. So we've got two questions in the chat, both of them U.S. related. Totally not. Our producer Brian says, is the men's national team terrible defense making Stefan look bad, or is Stefan overhyped? Stefan has like 500,000 saves in 5 games in Germany.
Yeah.
I think he had one real screw up in this game that will be sort of over examined. I'm not upset with Stefan in general. I think he's a good shot stopper. I think the ball distribution thing is maybe overrated for him, as this has just become a meme now for the U.S. And it's related because the next question from Jesse says, delayed arrival. Did I miss the rant about the injustice of Hamid not being on the men's national team? I can't even summon the upset about it anymore. I hope that, like me, Bill is just like, hey man, I went to a fashion show in New York City on Saturday night. That was fine. I don't have a problem with that. This is fine. I have things I can fill my time with. No big deal. Yeah, I'm okay with it. I'm fine to have him just be a DC United player, particularly if Zach Steffen is not. I don't think Zach Steffen is appreciably worse than Bill Hamid. I don't think Bill Hamid is appreciably way better than Zach Steffen.
I mean, in my opinion, it should be a competition right now between those two. Right now it's Greg Berhalter's way he wants to play. I think Zach Steffen. I mean, right now Zach Steffen's in Europe and he's starting for a Bundesliga level side, and he was signed by Manchester City. Bill Hamid is playing for DC. Bill Hamid is a fantastic goalkeeper. I think he's a great goalkeeper. you can't tell me that a player playing in the Bundesliga, starting in the Bundesliga, is worse than a player playing in MLS right now. And that's kind of just the way it is. I think Zach Steffen is a tremendous goalkeeper. I think he's a fantastic goalkeeper. I think he has potential to be a good goalkeeper. I think right now, Greg Berhalter is in these friendlies is trying to get this team to play a different style. And when you have a team that has never played that style, I don't think even Zach Steffen plays that style in his club. And that's another argument. Can you get a national team? You can do these types of things with like the U.S. women's national team because they're contracted under there. That's their primary source. That's the primary place they play. The U.S. men's national team, most coaches try to keep things simple. They don't try to do overly complex tactics. And Greg Berhalter is trying to do overly complex tactics. And we'll see if it works. He might usher in a revolution for how to coach a national team. But it's either going to be a revolution or probably a disaster right now is what it's looking like. So
along those lines, Jesse also said, hot take, Olsen would be a superior men's national team coach due to all of the years having inferior talent against better opponents. Do you agree? I think that is an interesting take. I think there was so much discussion about when Jurgen came along and he said, we're going to play the ball on the ground and we're going to compete and we're going to play soccer. And the whole concept of like American grit and just gut it out for 90 minutes and see what happens is gone. We're going to commit and we're going to compete.
And then he issued no tactical decisions and made no tactics and just said, nope, we're just going to play. I'm just going to throw the ball out there and you guys can just play. That's going to be how I get this done.
I would say that, Ben, there's something to that, although there have been motivational problems with this team this year. These are maybe more talented players than what we're talking about before, but like if you think about all the early goals that DC United gives up this year, mindset not very sharp. So I think in the past, in previous Benny Ball years where we were playing with Joseph Nuenya and just the dumpster diving MLS rosters and we were getting to the playoffs, I would say there's something to that that he's got that grittiness for sure.
I think he would be able to come up with a simple tactical plan that would work more than it wouldn't work. And that's kind of what we've seen with, and to be fair, I mean, most of the time when they're playing competitive matches, they're playing inferior opponents. Let's be clear. They play the Mexicos of the world, in friendlies, but we're talking about like competitive matches. I mean, Mexico's the only time they ever really play a team that's really that they're competitive with. The rest, and maybe you can make an argument right now, probably for Costa Rica as well. But I mean, the Panamas, the Trinidad and Tobagos, the Bermudas, the St. Vincent and the Grenadines of the world. I mean, they're usually playing better teams, so I think it would work pretty well for Ben Olsen because I think he's not a guy who builds a complex system. He has very simple tactics and very simple roles that he gives players. He's not a guy who's going to be overly, in the film shop drawing up, expert tactical plays. Like it's not how he works. So it could be really successful in a national team system where you're only seeing these guys, 2-3 weeks out of the year. So, you're not 2-3 weeks in a month, maybe if that. So you're not going to have much time to really work with some of these guys. And so you need simple ideas and simple tactics. We saw what he did with the All-Star team where he took a bunch of guys who had never played together and actually, I think they beat Chelsea.
I think this is for you. If you can contribute to the Patreon to get some paint on your walls behind you.
I'm renting right now. So, I mean, there's going to be no paint that goes on these walls. Once I own a house here, hopefully next year, then I will. If you want
to pay for a large wall hanging, however, that he could put on with 3M strips,
yes,
I think we probably accept that.
Yep, I think we could.
Some other MLS news. I'm wearing in honor of Sacramento Republic, rumored to be actually getting a team. They're going to be, I believe, the 29th team or 37th team or 337th team. I'm not really sure. They'll be coming in 2022, apparently.
Yes,
it's great news for people in Northern California. The new derby, well, I guess will be. I'm going to say derby because I'm not in England. The new local rivalry will be against San Jose because it's only a couple hours away. Someone said it should be called El Tráfico too because that corridor also has a lot of traffic. But happy for them. I think there's one more team coming in, and the rumor that people are saying is potentially it's going to be Charlotte.
Interesting.
Have you heard that?
I hadn't heard that, but that would be be a potential new rivalry for DC. To be honest, the DC sort of North Carolina rivalry. But I think good for Sacramento. They've been that one team that has just kind of done everything right, and they had the fans, they had everything, they got the stadium deal done. I'm just wondering if John's going to start like Papa Murphy's Park Refugees podcast or
Hell
something.
yes, I might. I've got some friends out there. I think that's a good the spinoff is what I've been looking for.
So, I mean, I guess
Papa
the question becomes, I guess, for Sacramento is they've got San Jose, I guess, as their more local rivalry. Their big rivalry was with LA, so I'm very curious to see whether because that rivalry is sort of akin to what's been happening to the DC United New York Red Bulls rivalry, and that it's just kind of like dissipated as LAFC has sort of taken center stage. You've got other teams that have kind of like taken up, with competitive matches. Now you got Sacramento, and that's going to be a little bit more of a closer rivalry. Probably those teams are probably going to be pretty comparable when it comes to spending. I don't think those two are going to spend at the levels that the LA Galaxy and LAFC, and also the market, plays a role in that as well. But
they will not spend. They will not spend. They have a new billionaire owner, but I think it is a nominal ownership, similar to Eric Tohier.
Yeah,
I think he was a owner on paper to get everything signed. They're going to pay for the stadium all of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The city is so basically right now what they're going to. I'm sure our listeners are very intrigued about this, but since I know about it, I'm going to tell you about it. The Sacramento Stadium is being built on what is basically a defunct rail yards area that used to be, I think, a Superfund site. So it's not used for anything else right now. They've made it flat. They've knocked down everything. They're going to build a giant medical facility and then build this very cool looking stadium. Renderings, may vary. I think that we've seen that now with Audi Field and almost every other place, that the renderings are not necessarily what we finally get. But they're going to build the stadium, and they said that they'll have a shovel in the ground as soon as the announcement goes. They've been ready to do this now for 4 years. So I think I'm still actually on a list for season ticket deposits for MLS. So I might actually get a phone call. Not going to buy them. Probably not going to get it, but I at least will appreciate the call.
You're talking about 15 cross country flights are not in your budget. What kind of person are you?
It depends on work. Maybe if I can find some sort of bi-coastal work situation, I will do it. But I think for now, one season ticket is probably sufficient.
Call the podcast, by the way, 202-905-0454. Call in.
We got some other comments here on the chat.
Read the chat comments. Yep.
Gregory says, how many teams is MLS going to add before it gets too ridiculous, and do they care? It's a good question. The buy-in keeps going up. It was $200 million for Sacramento. $200 million just to get in, just to get to be on the schedule, get your little widget on the top of that website.
So there is going to be a stopping point. There has to be a stopping point. But when you have as many markets when you have all these markets sort of clamoring to get in, you have lower league soccer that's growing as these teams are trying to get in as well, which is helping out your lower divisions. When you have all that, when you have an international, everybody talks about the depreciating talent, and it makes the league worse when you have more teams. That works in other leagues like NFL, MLB, NHL when they expand, because there's a very, very small market. But the thing about soccer is there's a worldwide market. I mean, there are so many, infinitely more many players in soccer than there are in other sports, and I think that's to MLS's benefits. They can keep expanding and they can keep getting bigger, and there's always going to be good talent coming out of South America. There's always going to be good talent you can find in Europe. There's always going to be good talent you can get in Africa, even Asia, places like that. So there's plenty of talent out there that you can bring into MLS, and you're going to get some Samuel Incums, and you're going to get some Joseph Martinez's. So that's kind of the nature about how it works. So
landlords beware. Depending on how.
I really don't think there's necessarily a cap for the league to grow. I think eventually it will stop. It is going to have to stop at some point. But I don't think right now you can evidently say. I mean, they might go to 32, 34, 35 teams. I think right now they're probably trying to get to 30, and then they're going to kind of reassess. But, I mean, when you have a growing league like this, I mean, why would you stop when there's so much demand to get in the league?
Here's a question for you. Say they have 30 teams, and they will someday. How many of those teams do you think will be trying to actively win the championship at any given time with the required amount of financial commitment and aspirations? How many do you think will really be going for it?
I mean, so you still have a salary cap. You still have
For now.
for now, correct. But I don't think that part is going away. Unless they completely open up the leagues and go promotion relegation.
Shh,
I
shh, shh. Don't say it.
Oh man. At this point, I mean, come on. If you want to call in and argue promotion relegation, call right in.
No, we don't.
202-905-0454. Yes, call right in.
We will not be taking those calls.
We will be taking those calls. I'm taking those
You're
calls.
right.
I'm
You're
ready. But I think the salary cap has to go up soon. I mean, right now it's still laughably low. So I think that's going to go up. I mean, I think you're going to have teams that are going to know that they can't compete with the likes of LAFC or the likes of Atlanta. But I mean, look, some teams have still managed to find ways to be successful. Look at the project that Philadelphia went under, where they completely rebuilt their roster and they completely remade it and became very successful now. They are battling at the top of the East when no one really thought that was going to happen. And they signed a big player like Marco Fabian, but a lot of that build he's really been kind of like an ancillary piece to that team. And that team is built on a very strong youth development system and bringing up players. And they suffered some bad seasons and people didn't show up. But that is the nature of what it is. And with the playoffs are kind of the great equalizer right now, with sort of one game and you move on. It's the same in football as well. You have teams that, go in, limp into the playoffs and then just have to win a few games to win the Super Bowl. So you're going to see a preference of dominant teams like LAFC, LA Galaxy, New York City FC once they get their stadium situation figured out. Even New England Revolution could be that with Robert Kraft. And certainly Atlanta United are in that category. You have dominant teams in the NFL, NBA, and other leagues as well. You still have stories like Toronto Raptors winning the NBA championship in 2008. That was a long rebuild they took. So I still think that you're going to have parity. You're still going to have You're still going to have some weird things that are going to happen. Teams are going to go on runs. I just don't. I think you are going to have an established top tier, which you have in every sports league, and those the Patriots. As much as everybody hates the Patriots, they win championships. They put together this unbelievable, decade long, just great team, and that has won 6 Super Bowl titles when they had won 0 the previous decades. So I mean, it's all about it's what American sports are, and in my opinion, MLS can still achieve that while having still teams that are good and that having teams spend money, and they're going to be teams that are going to do it other ways that are going to win. They might not win as much, but they're still going to have moments, or they have cycles where they get really good. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I wish that if we're going to have that many teams, you would have more of them be Atlanta-like. Now, not every stadium, not every market's going to support a 75,000 seater. But there's still room in there to be engaged, particularly if you're going to spend $200 million to get into a league. You're going to spend $300 million to build a stadium. Don't just coast on the fact that now you're on the league, and don't bring a whole bunch of your USL players up. Sacramento, I'm looking at you right now. If you do this, if you come up and you're bringing 3 to 4 to 5 year players from your, don't do it. You're not lighting USL up anymore. You're in the middle of the pack. You need to replace that roster entirely if you want to be competitive.
Yeah.
Maybe one player who plays on the bench. Anyway, I just want to say congrats to those people have been waiting quite a while, and they have been jerked around by this league like no other fan base I've seen so far. So I'm happy for them. A couple more comments here from the chat. Jesse says that Baltimore should get a team. I think that would be cool from the perspective of having a nice local rivalry. For those, for anybody that's a shorter time fan than me, you will maybe not know that we almost moved there.
Yeah.
Baltimore almost happened. There was a stadium study. It was definitely on the cards that if they couldn't find a stadium in DC, St. Louis or Baltimore could have been an option where they were going to land. And there were some people some Marylanders who were like, cool, great. That's a shorter drive for me. And then everyone else here in DC was like, nah, that's going to be it for me. I'm going to be a Richmond Kickers fan, I guess. That's all she wrote.
Yeah, I guess if they move, that's sort of like some alternate history. Like if we wanted to play, like what would have happened if DC had moved to Baltimore? Like what would have happened, like ownership wise? That might be a fun little thing. fun little rabbit hole I send us down at one point when we have shows like this where we have very
Maybe in
little
the off season. Maybe in the
Yes.
off season when we're dying for content, we could. There's a. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I follow him on Twitter. He's married to Yao Auerbach. His last name is West. I can't remember his first name. Anyway, he's doing a thing for NBC that's basically like what if, like, what happens if this thing happened? Like they did one where what if Gerrard doesn't slip, and then Liverpool win the league? How does that affect the rest of?
Yeah. And,
so we could do like what if we moved to St. Louis?
Yeah,
We could do that.
SB Nation also does like those what if things too as well. Like if it's like what if then something like that. So it's kind of cool too to reimagine alternate history with soccer. It would be interesting to imagine if they got the stadium like right off the bat. Like if DC had just built the stadium that they built, like would they become like a powerhouse like they are today? Fun little stories. I think that's all.
Do we want to talk about Pitch Pass?
Yeah, let's go into that because that might get some people to get involved. If you haven't heard, John, I'll let you talk a little bit about what was on Pitch Pass.
You're asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you.
So
to talk.
So Sebi Salazar was on Roach's podcast this last week, following the previous week where he had Paulo on to talk about the things that he was mad about. And Greg was extremely mad about a lot of things. He was mad about the stadium not being completed. He was mad. He really would like to sell everyone. He is very much all about that selling life. He was like, we should sell Paul. We should sell Junior. We should sell Bill. We should sell everybody. Let's just sell everybody. I'm not about that, Greg. I'm gonna depart with you there as a fan. I don't really care about our pockets. I care about who we're watching. That's my personal take. It's a very. You're an Arsenal fan, right, Ted?
I'm a Liverpool fan. Liverpool.
Sorry. Yeah, Arsenal fans are really big about like, how positive are they in the books? Like we sold all these players and we're positive. Although this year they're extremely not and can't even make any transfers. They were having to do a whole bunch of weird stuff in accounting. But anyway, that aside. So this week he had on Sebi Salazar, who you will know from the Capital Soccer Show. Longtime DC United fans will remember one of the first podcasts. It was a team-sponsored podcast, but a good one that everyone liked. Yeah. So there was that. He's done that. He worked for the team for a while. He was on CSN Washington. He was at CSN Houston. Now he works at ESPN. You will probably remember him recently from last year saying that Wayne Rooney was a horrible signing and DC United shouldn't have done it. So put that to the side. I think he was intentionally being a bit of a hot take artist there, and it worked really well. People heard about him. But anyway, they talked about the show. They talked about, he talked about what his feelings are for DC United, and he talked about how he used to be. He and his dad had season tickets from '96. Even when he didn't live in the city anymore, they always kept them. There was a period where they stopped. They restarted back in 2010, and he talked about the experiences he's had with the team and how so much of the connection that he's had with them has been broken and shattered. Put to the side that he was a former employee, so you have to take a little bit of a grain of salt with his rage. I think that if you ask me about my former employers, you should take a grain of salt what I have to say about them. But he talked about the fact that when he's on ESPN, he talks about the team, and then he gets yelled at, like directly. Like they will call him, his ticket rep maybe, or front office staff will be like, I don't think that's appropriate, and they'll mess with him. And he's like, this isn't great. And then he talked about all the people that he knew are all gone, and they fired all the soccer people. I don't know. Some of you probably are, maybe not, maybe have not been fans super long time, but there has been, from 2010, 2009 to now, there's been a complete wholesale front office turnover in the ticket sales department, in marketing, in the front office, except for maybe the GM. There's been a lot of moves there, and for the most part, the moves that have been the changes that have been made, they've brought in people who are not necessarily from the area, not necessarily soccer people, but they've done the best they could do. The difference you see though is the way that the team treats its long-term fans, the way that the team there have been a number of occasions where the team doesn't understand the role of the supporters, doesn't understand the importance and the relationship people had to the team, and that it's not just like being a Redskins fan or being a Nationals fan. These people are different. The relationship is different. And for them, it was just a normal sports business calculation. You didn't think about it that way. So he's basically talking about how this is not his DC United anymore. He doesn't feel the same way when Ben goes, when Dave goes. We talked about before. His ties to that team will be gone. They've changed the logo. They've changed the stadium for mostly better, but some worse. Based on the name of our podcast, you'll know we have a soft spot for it. But he just doesn't feel the same connection to it anymore. And at that point, what is the point in still engaging? Like you're it's a nostalgia play for you at that point. You're having tickets not because of the team who they are now, but what they meant to you in the past. And they're not going to ever be that team again. Early days DC United is an entirely different animal than MLS teams in general, but DC United specifically now. It's much more of a business or much more customers. It's a different paradigm. And he talked about it. He's like, that's business. That's how capitalism works. You gotta extract your revenue for your investors or for your owners. That's fine. But he said, I agree with him this. He's like, I'm sentimental. I am an idealist about this, and I mourn for what has been lost. The team that isn't anymore, and the way that it doesn't fit into the community the way it used to anymore. So I don't feel the same way I do anymore. Do you want to talk? So you can chime in on that, but also talk about what the news he broke about the academy.
Yeah, so I came into that podcast. I've been, the Emil Asad signing happened. I had very rosy picture, the I guess the shock of not having Wayne Rooney out there on the field and everything like that. And boy, did Sebi just kind of just bring me down. It was like, I just felt really I just felt really down about the team because a lot of what he's saying was really true. I mean, you walk around the stadium, there's no history in the stadium. They don't have the banners. They don't have anything that would symbolize except, a display of the trophies in the shop and in the room. And even then it's very much hidden. It's not out there. And there's so much they could do there to sort of make things better. The connection to the club, it's really, the badge has changed. It's really a different team than it was all those years ago. And like, even like, I'm just thinking like the opening, you could do so much with the history of the club and everything like that. Like when you have the opening video that they have in the Flow Sports and for the TV, like there's so much you could do there. I think that would be really cool, but that's neither here nor there. But he's right about a lot of things. He's right that, things are very different. I will say I'm seeing some signs that things are getting better. The sideline reporter they have now, she speaks Spanish and is actually able to interview Lucho Acosta in Spanish, which is fantastic, and do interviews with a lot of these other Spanish players. So I'm glad they've made that move. I think they hired a new social media person.
From the Panthers.
Yeah,
from Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, and sounds like she's at least open to learning about how things are run, and she's doing a really good job from what I've seen in the Twitter feed. But you're right, it's still kind of I think she posted I saw a tweet she posted where she was collapsing on the bed, like one of those memes of collapsing on the bed trying to learn about soccer, because it's very much a different language from football and everything like that. So, but it seems like she's really raring to go, and it's cool that we're hiring somebody, I guess, away from the NFL. I guess that's a positive thing to hear, because one thing Roach said on the podcast was it doesn't matter because, all these people we hire are just going to leave. So it seems positive to me that they're bringing in somebody from a big thing like the NFL. So I look at that, but I think about all things like of course, the news he broke was that the academy, they're getting rid of the U12 and U13 academy. And then, I think I read on Reddit one day, someone was like, oh, I used to really be into the club and go to games, but now I can't watch them on TV. So I find it really hard to get really into the club, because I'm not going to, I'm a casual fan. I'm not going to pay the Flow Sports contract. And, I'm not going to go to games because I can't really watch them. So I'm not really following them like I used to. And, looking at the TV schedule to see when they're going to be on TV and actively watching them. And that part is really sad, and especially when he talked about the Flow Sports deal, just it being a short-term move, which it was. It was a short-term move, and it really has killed a lot of momentum with the fans about exposure. And he talked about what CSN was offering, and the exposure they were going to offer the team and the club. And I'm sure he's probably a little bit hurt, because maybe he thought, I think he was at CSN Washington before moving to ESPN, and maybe he thought maybe he would get more access to come back to CSN Washington. So, I mean, that could be another thing too. I'm sure he loved his time at CSN Washington. But it's really sad, I guess, in that regard, about how much the Flow Sports deal has really hurt them. I mean, the diehards like me, it's a question of, I think they were asking, are you going to, everybody's asking whether they're going to renew Flow Sports next year. I'm going to renew it because I pretty much have to. I guess I could explore other options, but I like to watch on my Apple TV, and as long as I can still get it at the $70 rate, which that's another question I'm going to have when that comes around. As long as I can still get it at that rate, I'm probably going to renew. And that's because I still like this club. I host a podcast about this club, but I can understand a lot of people feeling upset and feeling like the club is almost kind of, abandoned them for sort of short-term gains. And, it's obviously, it's the financials, I'm not looking at their books. And that's what Pablo Mauro would say. He was kind of like, look, I don't run their books. I don't do anything about that. Anyway, so.
We've got a caller.
Oh, we do have a caller. Yes, bring him in. Grant, bring in the show. We always get people calling in when we talk about like Flow Sports. It's just like the calling sign to get people to call in because people get really
like
fired.
honey. It's like honey to bees.
Yes, it's like honey to bees. So go ahead, add him into the show. But while we wait on that, I guess I'll just kind of finish my thought. But yeah, I mean it's just
call back, Grant.
Call back, Grant. Sorry. We're dealing with new technology, trying to figure it out. So of course we get our first caller in, and then it doesn't quite work. But I don't know. Like, what do you kind of gave a summary? I guess. Do you have similar thoughts? I guess about what he said and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel identical, to be honest with you. I talked with one of our listeners, I think named John, at the Meet the Team Day. I'm not gonna not go to these games if I can help it. I'm not gonna not pay to see this team. This team could have. I have a illogical level commitment and love for this team that it's not going to go away. It just isn't. I mean, I have my fandom and love for teams and other sports have waned and waxed over the years. DC has remained constant for almost 12 years. This is just the way it is. So that's the difference for me, is that it's not just nostalgia for me. Like I'm a fan that can't quit this team. Yeah. I'm the perfect consumer for them because they're just going to keep getting my money for as long as they exist. And that makes me not, super helpful for any sort of boycotts or making a difference on changing the way the team operates. I'll complain. I'll make podcasts, or I complain about it to an audience of some people that want to listen to it. But I'm just going to keep doing it. But I understand I completely 100% understand his idea to just say, I'm done. I've paid. He called it his tax, his soccer tax. He was going to keep paying for that season ticket because he needed to be counted. He needed to have a voice and say that this market can support soccer fans. And I mean, we're the number one market for Premier League games. We're, the fans are here, but I understand him saying I'm gonna go elsewhere. I'm gonna give my ticket to the Spirit or college soccer or whatever it is. I totally legitimate, and he makes great points. I just am gonna operate in a different way.
Yeah, and it's and I'm in the same. I mean, I'm not gonna buy season tickets, but I'm still going to go to games, care about the team, follow the team, do all those things, and be critical about the team when I feel there's a reason to be critical. And some of the moves they made have been really puzzling. I think they are doing a lot to sort of try to fix a lot of the problems. I think there were people in that front office when the stadium was opening that, you're right, didn't understand soccer. I think they've gotten people in there now who at least understand a little bit. This is a little bit different. There seems like they're trying to teach people that things are a little different. And I think we have Grant on the phone now, so I'm going to go ahead and let it come in. Hello, this is RFQ Refugees. How can we help you?
Hey, this is Grant. I'm calling in. I'm a relatively new fan and newer listener to the podcast in the last year and a half or so. And I guess, outside of the Flow Sport deal, which I think is a disaster, and I think ownership recognizes that, I just get your opinion on whether you think they're actually listening to the fan base and making improvements, because I kind of feel like they are, and I'm not sure that they're getting credit for it from Sebi or from, on Pitch Pass. Obviously, we're getting a lot of negativity. They lose Rooney, but they sign Kamara, they sign Asad. So I think I'm very excited for 2020 and beyond, but I'm not sure that I'm hearing a lot of that enthusiasm being carried over by a lot of other folks.
I've heard kind of the same things you have, Grant. I've heard, from people high up in supporters groups and things like that. I've talked with them, and they're like, no, I mean, you got to you got to give this some time. I mean, the previous ownership did a lot to hurt the relationship with the fans, and there's been a lot of effort to do that, to sort of to rekindle that and bring those people back in. And they're going to need to, because they don't have the flashy superstar. They got to bring those people back for sure. So, John, did you have anything you wanted to say on that?
Yeah, I think Grant, I think your call is interesting because it's important to realize that the fan base is not a monolith about this. If you look at Twitter or Reddit, there's unanimous negativity about the direction of the team, about the future, about the choices they've made, and you know, you're a relatively new fan. Maybe that you've not gotten burnt out yet, which is good. You've still got the hope in you. You've still got the you know, you're not dead inside all the way. That's good. We need people that aren't dead inside. But yeah, I think it's important to realize that people are viewing the moves differently, and that there's no right or wrong about this. I think that you're right. We're losing Rooney. They didn't want to lose Rooney. They didn't plan to lose Rooney, but they're making moves to try to address those problems. And Kamara's already scoring goals, and that's really the most important thing. I care more about performance on the field than draw at the gates. And if we lose out on those people, I totally understand that that's a problem in the long term. But I'm most concerned about how the play is on the field. Oh, are you a Flow Sports subscriber, Grant?
Yeah. I mean, I'm all in. I've got Flow. I've got season tickets, and you know what I'd say is I think the biggest thing with Flow for me is you know, I have it, but I've brought a lot of new potential fans to DC United games, and they love the game day experience. They love Audi Field. They love the energy of it. But then, you know, when you try to talk to them about games that are on the road, they're not interested in watching because they're not going to subscribe as casual fans. I think this is where the ownership is. That was a really bad decision on their part, just because you're going to lose all of these people. You know, the hope is that eventually you get out of that and maybe everything's on ESPN Plus or whatever it is. But I think in the short term, that really hinders them more than any other decisions they've made, because it does seem like they want to make changes. You know, I hope they put in safe standing for the supporters. They've made some changes, you know, even meet the team day, right? You know, things like this, the little things that I think go a long way. They brought the trophy out. They're doing these community outreach efforts. I think Flow is a big problem. With that said, you know, I do think that from a new fan's perspective, you know, I hear a lot of negativity about a team that's potentially in line to host a playoff game, and obviously we'll see what happens here. But you know, I'm excited about this season. I'm excited about next season. I'm excited about the future of it, and I just, you know, I get that maybe I'm not burnt out yet, but you know, I'm excited, and you know, I think it's the best game day experience in DC. You know, I have Nats season tickets. I've had Wizards season tickets. For me, it's kind of really exciting to be part of this and this new stadium and all of this. But maybe I'll be burnt out by like next year this time.
Grant, you've got to keep calling in, buddy, because your positivity is you're filling me with joy. You really are. But I will say, as a devil's advocate slightly, so I think what the reason that people are the burnout people are a bit more pessimistic. You were talking about sort of the meet the team day, the community outreach, the things they're doing. They used to do a lot more of that. Back when they were in RFK, like you know, I've not been in as long as Ted. I've only been in since 2007. But the team was sort of on a completely different spectrum for how engaged they were in the community than any other sports team. The way they treated their fans it was not a business-like relationship at all. You really did feel like you were like, I felt much more of a family atmosphere. It did not feel as corporate because of the stadium it was in. So that's, I think, from my perspective, that's where I still feel I'm still left a little bit cold with the things they do. They're doing great things and I appreciate them, but there's no way they can ever live up to their prior standard just because the world has changed and MLS has changed, and you know, it's a different team.
Yeah, they brought an MLS Cup trophy and the US Open Cup trophy down to Richmond, like a 2-hour drive. So there was a lot of that great outreach, and it has eroded. So I hear about some of those community events. I hope they keep doing it. I've been supporting this team 15 years on. I'm still positive about the future. I'm the eternal optimist, and even though it kills me when I watch games, but that's just kind of who I am. So it is possible, Grant. That's what I'm saying. It is very possible. All right.
Yeah, I appreciate taking my call, guys.
Absolutely, Grant.
Thanks for calling, Grant.
Thanks for calling, man. Yeah, I mean, that's good. That made me feel good. I feel really good after that call.
Yeah, it's a nice little change of pace. I think that you know, you're a longer timer. I'm a medium long time person, and you do get a little burnout. You
I
do
think
get a
we,
little
we have another
jaded.
call, so we're gonna go
Hit
ahead.
it.
That's
Punch it, Chewy.
Welcome to RFP Refugees. How can we help you?
Hey, so it's Gregory College. Hey, is this John, Ted?
Yep. What's up, man? What's on your mind?
So can we talk about these 8 p.m. start times and stuff? Because I posted this in the comments. I don't know if you saw it, but MLS is almost 25 years old, and they were right about the time when people who grew up going to these DC United games are going to start taking their kids to DC United games. But problem is with these 8 p.m. start times and like what 6-7 games starting on weeknights that are on weeknights this year, it's just harder and harder for people to take their kids to the game unless you're like single, have no kids. It's hard to keep getting to these games, and then their kids aren't going to get into DC United, and so when they're older, when they're adults and have their own money and their own families, they're not going to support the team. So this is going to hurt the team probably for decades to come. And
yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think about that a lot. I think about when I have kids and I want to have, when I'm thinking about my season tickets, like the only games I'm going to be able to go to are the Sunday afternoon games. I live an hour plus away. A weeknight game with a kid is impossible, clearly. From as far as I live, and a Saturday night one will still be a little bit challenging. And that's just, I mean, everyone's got different, needs. And if you live in the city, a weeknight game is fine.
Even if they played the Saturday night game at 7 p.m. instead of 8, that would be a lot easier.
Yeah,
it would make a big difference. You're absolutely right.
Yeah,
I think that's a good point. It's not a very family friendly move. It's all about TV, and for better or for worse, no one watches on TV anyway. So maybe don't make the life worse for the fans based on the number of people who watch it.
Why did this even happen? Why did this even happen though? How come we can predict the exact second there will be a solar eclipse 5,000 years in the future, but we can't predict where the sun will be for a soccer game this season?
Some of it's that. It's also the window. The national TV window is at 8 o'clock is a little bit better because it opens up the center of the country and people coming home from work on the West Coast. Yeah. So that a lot of it is about the sun.
Most of these games aren't on national TV though.
We've had quite a few this year.
Yeah,
we've had about 8 or 9 games, I think, on national TV this year.
We got about 13.
Most of which are on Sunday nights at 7 o'clock, which is also not good because it's a weeknight, sort of, but not at 8 o'clock. I mean, most of the nationally televised games are at 7 or 7:30. I don't think many of them were. The ones at 8 were all on Flow Sports. I mean, Sunday night games aren't very family friendly either, but.
That's true.
That's true.
That's another issue.
That's true. Greg, we have someone waiting on the phone line right now, so I'm going to have to let you go. But thank you so much for giving your calls and your thoughts.
It is a concern. It is a thing of concern that I am focused on. Yes. Honestly.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Well, hey, we're getting calls in, and it's like at the last minute. Maybe we should start our show at like 8:30 or like 9 o'clock.
Start doing this. By the way, I think people are putting kids to bed or eating dinner.
What's that? Yeah, but I mean, I think Greg reaches a good point. I mean, the 8 o'clock start times, a lot of that has to do with the sun. A lot of that has to do with the way the game is shot. I think also my one of my friends his seat has had to move because of the fact that they have to put the cameras in there because of the sun. So they have to shoot it out from a different angle and everything like that. So apparently Skype has crashed. Oh man, we're having all kinds of wonderful issues right now.
Call back in, Eric.
Yeah, call back in, Eric.
We're gonna get. You know what we should do is we should get landlines and have like a switchboard operator behind you pulling cables in and out. Or at the very worst, just like hold the phone up to the microphone on a speakerphone and we'll adjust it that way.
Yeah. I mean,
as a plan B.
Yeah, I think that the issue right now with the team obviously is the sun. I mean, that's something they knew about. Part of me is like, as kind of, well, can't you just rotate the stadium so the TV faces away from the sun and then it doesn't matter? Like, I mean, that just seems like such a silly thing. I feel like there's some way you could have worked around it. Again, I'm not an engineer. I'm not somebody. There might have been some other unforeseen complications.
You couldn't. The way that the orientation of that stadium is the only configuration that the stadium length and width wise would have fit.
Not even if you just flip it, like just reverse it. So
no.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Because the easements on that side, so they wouldn't be able to have the big stand. this is the one area that I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt on.
Yeah.
Like they would not have intentionally done the dumb thing if they could have avoided it, particularly because they knew that this was going to happen.
Yeah,
and they go ahead.
I was just saying. I mean, they've talked about ways to fix it, but they literally said there's nothing we can really do with the way the sun is. I mean, we could build, I guess, a roof that maybe goes over the top, but even then, I'm not sure that's not really gonna work very well.
He said they'd have to contact NASA.
Yeah,
the guy, he was like, we'd have to build a structure that defies physics. So basically, wear sunglasses.
Yeah,
Taylor Twellman.
It's going to be the way it's going to be. I mean, they're going to hopefully come up with some ways to make it a little better, to make it fixer. We have our caller back in. I'm going to go ahead. I think it's Eric is going to be on the line. Welcome to RFK Refugees. How can we help you?
Hi, I'm Eric. We've been handling some technical difficulties on the call-in side.
Yeah. Yep. Sorry about that.
And that's okay. I have not been a supporter for a super long time. I kind of got interested in the team mildly back in 2009, and I went to my first playoff game in 2015 after I moved back up here after college, and fell in love, right? And I was like, man, I'm gonna go stand with the supporters dudes, and did that. And now I'm not affiliated with any one group. I would consider myself, I like to sing a lot, so I yell at people and make them sing, and we have a good time, generally. And here's where I would like to get your guys' opinions. The class of character that has been coming into the stands in general, in the supporter section, has, like, the casual fans sometimes met the soccer culture with just vitriol and anger. And, like every game, there's at least one person who says, hey, this is my seat. This is not general admission. You got to move there. And but one thing I do want to say that has gotten a lot better is security now, like, knows what's going on and has everyone's back when it comes to that. So they're just like, I'm sorry, bro. Like, this is general admission. And I am super proud of the team for putting up, like, I don't know if anyone's seen them, but they have little signs outside the entrances to both the entrances to the supporter section that say, this is general admission, people will be standing, beer will be thrown, there will be smoke, you're probably going to have your view obstructed by a flag at one point or another. And I really do appreciate that, because I remember last season this problem was, like, compounded 100 times worse.
Yeah.
With all the new fans coming to the stadium and the Rooney, I don't want to call them bandwagoners, but that's kind of what they are. And so that just, I'm in a strange place. A lot of because I'm not affiliated, I feel like I can talk about, like, how the ultras and La Barra Brava are just a lot of negative energy on game day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I don't know. I used to have a lot of fun going to these games, and it's my season ticket rep called me, and he was like, hey, man, you want to renew? And I had to be like, I don't know, do I?
Yeah.
And that's where I was at, and it was, like, right after a giant loss, and I was like, all right, man, maybe read the room, my bro.
Bad timing on that for sure. They should have waited till after the 3-0 victory for Montreal. I think that seems like a supporter ticket, like 101. Like, don't call after
hit the
a
phones, guys. We won a game. Everybody, all hands on deck.
Like
call your ticket people.
You see, time
it was the day after.
Yeah, so I would.
But
say,
I do want to say, like, in general. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just want to say, like, in general, like, the supporters section experience has been awesome. RFK was just, like, amazing. It was like Mad Max Fury Road. It was like, there were no rules. People could die. Concrete could fall. We could flood. It was amazing. And now it's a little more tame, a little more family friendly. God, whoever said stay standing earlier, that was I every single game I come back from with my shins are bloody. It's kind of really gross. But it's just because, like, you're standing there, and if you're like leaning up against the row in front of you, because it's so packed in that, like, your shins are just rubbing the back of the bench in front of you. So if you start jumping, like, you're gonna get this horrible burn, like, on your shins, and I have, like, permanent marks now. But yeah, stay standing is definitely needed. But in general, this season, I think things have gotten better between the stadium staff and understanding what it means to host a soccer match. Anyway, that was just how I'm feeling about that.
Yeah, and I will agree with you. I mean, that's always been a problem. Even when they were at RFK, I remember there were times people would sit in the supporters section, and I think one guy was like, if everybody could just sit down or they could stop waving the flag, we could watch the game. And it's kind of like, everybody kind of looked at him like, dude, this isn't what, it's not what this is about.
You're in the wrong section.
You're in the wrong
sir.
section. And even at DC, I agree with you about the safe standing. That needs to change. And I think the team wanted to do that, but the city was like, no, we don't want to institute this because we want, put bench seating in there if you want like cheaper seating. This safe standing is confusing to us. We don't want that in there. So apparently they finally got the city. I think there were a couple articles in the Post about it, and they finally got the city to agree. Okay, we'll put in the safe standing. So I'd say stay tuned on that. I think that's the one thing they've said. They've been very concrete about that. They're looking to implement either next year or very soon after. So I would hope that is high on their priority list because that just needs to happen. There needs to be a safer way for those fans to interact because, I mean, there's going to be – I think they're going to get away with it this year, but, I mean, eventually I think there's going to be some sort of event that's going to happen where someone's going to get injured and have to be taken out on a stretcher because they fell or something happened. So hopefully that's something that they fix relatively quickly because that's an easy fix. You can do that pretty easily. So,
Eric, I'm glad you brought up the joy and chaos that was the RFK supporter section. That I've talked about that a number of times on this podcast. Like the reason I love and miss RFK is because of the fact that it was a hovel and it was falling down. There were no rules. It was anarchy. It was like intentional anarchy and chaos, and it felt so different than every other thing that you could go to and pay to go see, as you were saying. And Audi Field just feels like another sport. I mean, it's better. It's still the best. It's still the best experience in town, by bar none, by every other sports franchise. But it doesn't feel the same way. Like it's been a theme for this show. We're talking about how, the experience has evolved through time. It will never feel the way it did then because the stakes were different and the rules were different and the venue was the fans. They owned it. They weren't spending any money on trying to make a cool experience for the fan. It was just like, here is a place. Go do what you want in it. Don't kill anyone, please. And then other than that, you can do whatever you want. So I miss that too. And it's right to mourn it.
Yes, very right to mourn it. And
I do just want to say I am less gloomy than I was at this point last year about this, because at this point last year, like maybe not this point last year, but maybe like June last year, like people were. It felt like they were squeezing the soul out of this team. I don't know, the soul out of supporters at least, and it just felt like we pay our money too. Do we deserve to be heard? I don't know. And like it seems, I mean, now what is it? Chris Hull is like in the stinking supporters stands every single game almost, or was, and I just want to say, like, I do appreciate that the stadium has made like little gestures, like to make it better.
Yeah. Yep.
And Ola Kamara doesn't hurt anything either, does he? Right? He's such a sweetheart, scoring all those goals and just not being sad to watch.
We love him.
So,
we love him. He's
Yes.
very. Ted loved him first. I now love him.
Yes.
After meeting him in person.
I was the one who said he was going to let it the league. Eric, thanks so much for calling in, man. We're going to go ahead and let you go, but please feel free to call back in again. We love you. You bring an awesome energy to the podcast.
2 positivity in a row. We got to keep it going.
Thanks.
Thanks.
We're gonna let you go. Yeah, I mean, I think is Chris Hall still employed with the team? Is he still like he's gotten quieter. It's been a little weird.
I went on his Twitter page yesterday to see. He doesn't have anything about DC United in his, because that's what you do when you're a host of a DC United podcast. You just hang out and cruise DC United Twitter things to see if anybody's Avi has changed or bio has changed. If he had anything about DC United in his bio, it's gone now. He retweeted something about the team about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think. It's possible that I don't think he was a permanent employee. I think he was sort of a consultant brought in to there was a part of it that was supervising the Wayne thing. Wayne's out the door. who knows? I think it's possible he could no longer be around. I've not heard him much lately.
Yeah, I'm wondering. My hope is that he got maybe a promotion, so to speak, and now he has maybe he has moved up a little bit, I guess, in the world. But you would think that would be in your bio if that had happened. So it might be that he was brought in for Wayne, and then he was there because he was a good positive influence on the team, and then they were like, you know what, I think we're gonna go some direction else, or he could have gotten some other type of job that he wanted to do more. So I hope he's. Eric was kind of talking like he was still involved in the team and in the stands every game. I can't say I've been to the past few games. I've really seen him. I haven't really seen him all that much. So
I would see him every time I was there in the past, and
you
since
do
I have
not.
season tickets, I'm almost always there. He used to be doing being a tour guide before games. I've seen him doing that. I think I don't know. I think he may not be part of the day of game crew.
I mean, it's a good thing that the team has hired, I guess, other people to sort of cover his many jobs, because he was literally doing it all for the team at one point, and now they have other people filled in those roles. That's why I'm a little bit more positive on the sort of personnel side, where Sebi was kind of negative. I think and look, I think you hire more people. These people are going to come in. You're going to get some good ones that are going to come in that are actually going to do good things and sort of help reconnect that community with the club, because I think the large reason things were so bad was because they didn't have the personnel to do it. So,
Right.
all right, this is our last chance if you want to get in on the show. We had a whole bunch of people called in. The show went longer, I think, than we expected. But if you want to jump on in, numbers at the top, 202-905-0454. Hopefully the Skype does not crash on Brian. So
Poor Brian.
Yeah, poor Brian.
If you're old or have watched old television, I imagine him to be like the Lucy sketch where he's trying to shove all of the chocolates in his mouth and in his shirt. That's a very old person reference, but that's what you can expect with me. I am not a super old person, but if you were to like look at the references I make, you would assume I was 65, 70 years old. But I'm not. That's the cool thing about me. I'm diverse that way.
Yeah. I was having to listen on my people at my work were talking about how they didn't know any songs from like the 2000s, and that actually made me feel a little young. So that was nice. So.
As in they were like too young for it or too old for it?
Too young, too old for it, I think was what is the thing I got. So that made me feel a little better, because lately I had like a group of teenagers, they were singing like Backstreet Boys songs, like, oh, we heard it on a Burger King commercial, and I'm like, oh, that made me feel old. Like, they were not allowed.
If you want to feel more old, Claudia, the new I think her name is Claudia, the new sideline reporter. Mm-hmm. She's 22 years old, Ted. She's 22, and she works for the team and is the face of the team. So, in case you started to feel a little bit young there for a second with those people, that'll slap you right back there.
Slap me right back. Thanks, John. John.
No problem. Right. Listen, if I gotta feel old, you gotta feel old. Hi, the Screaming Eagles account just joined us. Welcome, folks. I don't know who runs that. Hi, entire supporter group.
Yeah. All right. I think we're gonna go ahead and call it. I don't think there's really anything, unless you have anything else you want to add to end the show, or.
Portland is coming, or we're going to Portland next Sunday.
We are.
But we don't have much to say on that. I think there's a possibility, perhaps we have a conversation with someone in the run up, and maybe we'll push that to our podcast feed, but that's not a guarantee. No promises made here.
Yeah.
The only promise we make to you is that we're going to be here every Monday night. Other than that, all promises are void.
Yes.
Sorry.
We'll try to get guests. It didn't work out this week. I had somebody I was talking to, but they unfortunately could not do it Monday night. So this is when we have these set-in shows, we lose a little bit of flexibility. But we're still going to try to get some of those guests out. We're going to do a better job. We did a better job of it this year. We're going to do a better job of it next year. We're just going to keep getting better. We got better doing these live shows too. So, So I guess that will do it. Thank you all so much for listening, for tuning in, for being just a part of the show. You guys are awesome. We had great calls this week too. That was fantastic. And we will catch you all next.
Vamos.